Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as you could see that we have started the discussion over the center and the state relations in the previous lecture, and basically these are the topics we have scheduled for the discussion under this particular series, like starting with the introduction part, thereafter the legislative relations, thereafter the administrative relations, thereafter the financial relations, thereafter the trends in the center state relations. Okay, so these are the topics we have scheduled for the discussion under this particular series. Out of this, basically we had done with the introduction part, all right, and basically we have started a discussion over the legislative relations. Okay, and basically the topics we are left with is the administrative relations, financial relations, and the trends in the science state relations. Okay, so that is the picture we have created so far altogether. I hope that you have revised the previous lecture in the well enough manner before you have come for this lecture, as many times I have told you that is for your own benefit. So if you are not doing this thing, then you won't be able to grasp the picture in the proper sense. Okay, so we will start from where we had left with in the previous lecture. All right, so basically we had started the discussion over the territorial extent of the center state relations. Okay, and basically we had seen the central government having the power to make the rules and the regulations for whole country or any part of the country. Okay, on what does it mean by the territory of India, we had also concluded it. Thereafter we had seen the state legislature can make the laws for whole country or and sorry for whole state or any part of the state. Okay, and the laws made by the state legislature are applicable outside the state, sorry, not applicable outside the state. Okay, but only applicable in a case when there is a sufficient nexus between the state and the object. And for this, basically we had taken the example of Karnataka and the Tamil Nadu. Okay, we had discussed that the both are the border sharing states, and basically the both states sharing the water of Kaveri river. Okay, and we had discussed that the Kaveri river is the object between the both. Okay, so if there is anything happens in the Karnataka regarding the Kaveri river, the thing will impact the people of Tamil Nadu. Similarly, if the Tamil Nadu do something regarding the Kaveri river, then the things will be applicable and impactful for the Karnataka people. Okay, so the laws of the state legislature could be effective outside the state only in the case of sufficient nexus between the state and the object. All right. Thereafter, the third point is the parliament alone can make the extraterritorial legislation. Okay, what does it mean? Thus, the laws of the parliament are also applicable to the Indian citizens and the property in the other part of the world. Okay, it means that suppose if the person is living in the country of India, this is India, for example, the person is living in the India or he is a citizen of India, and there is any other country, for example, like the London. Okay, so if the person having the property in London, so the property is lying outside the Indian territory. Okay, the property is it lies outside the Indian territory. Why? Because the property is in London and the person is in India. But because the person is the citizen of India, okay, so the parliament laws could impact him as well as his property in the other part of the world. Okay, and that concept basically we called as a extra territorial extent. Got it? That's the picture. However, the constitution places the certain restrictions on the plenary territorial jurisdiction of the parliament. In other words, the laws of parliament are not applicable in the following areas, like the president can make regulations for the peace, progress, and the good government of the 5 union territories, like the territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadra and the Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, and the Ladakh. Okay, a regulation so made has the same force and effect as an act of parliament. It may also repeal or amend any act of parliament in relation to these union territories. Okay, so basically, there is a power of president which could impact the power of parliament regarding making the laws in the territory of India. Like as we had seen, basically the president is empowered to make the regulations for the process of peace, progress, and the good government in the 5 union territories, and the union territories are named as the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, and Ladakh. Okay, and even if the parliament has, you can say, implemented some laws, okay, and some act, then basically the president is empowered to repeal the act or to amend the act in favor of these union territories in the matters of peace, progress, and the good governance. It means that that is a cap over the parliamentary's power of making rules and the regulations for the territorial extent. Thereafter, another thing is the governor is empowered to direct an act of parliament does not apply to a scheduled area in a state or apply with some specified modification in exceptions. So basically, we could say that the president could exercise the restricted power on parliament in the case of union territories. But if the case is about the state, then basically the governor having the power that the governor could amend or could modify, even could stop the implication and the implementation of some parliamentary act on the scheduled area of the state. Okay, and thus the governor holding the power of restrictions on the parliament's legislative relations. Thereafter, third thing is the governor of Assam may likewise direct that an act of parliament does not apply to the tribal area, autonomous district in the state, or apply with the specified modification and the exceptions. Alright. So basically, if we talk about the autonomous district, which we could see here, let me write down here. If we talk about the automatic districts, then these are the tribal or scheduled districts. Alright. So basically, through the Indian Constitution, we have provided them the autonomous nature. It means that they could make their local laws, they could make their local rules, and they could operate by them. Alright. So basically, they have got the autonomous in respect of the tribal and the scheduled nature. Okay. So basically, the governor of state, like the Assam state, he having the power that he could direct an act of the parliament does not apply to a tribal area if the area is counted under the autonomous district. Okay, but if he applies the act, and he could say that if he allows the act to be implemented, then the act could be implemented but having some specified modification and the exceptions. All right, the president enjoys the same power with respect to the tribal areas in other states like in Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. So we could conclude that if the matter of Assam, then the governor of Assam having the power to stop the implementation of the parliamentary act or allow the implementation, but with some simpler modifications and restrictions. Okay, if the matter is regarded with the autonomous council, or you can say autonomous district of the state. But if the topic is about the Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram and having the same cause, then basically the president having the powers, then he could stop the implementation of the parliamentary act and even could allow the implementation, but with some specified modification and the exceptions. Second is distribution of the legislative subjects. Okay, like how the legislative powers and the subject divided between the central level and the state level. So remember, the constitution provides for the threefold distribution of the legislative subjects between the center and the state. Okay, and basically this is divided into the terms of list, like list 1, which stands for the union list, list 2, which stands for the state list, and list 3, which stands for the concurrent list. And basically it is provided in the 7th schedule of the Indian constitution. So remember, whenever the question asks you and whenever the concept comes in the picture, that how does the legislative relations are divided between the central and the state level, then remember it is always divided by the list which are provided into the constitution. Okay, and the list are basically available in the 7th schedule of the constitution, and the list are the three. First list stands for the union list, second list stands for the state list, and the third list stands for the concurrent list. All right, so basically if we talk about the first list, the parliament has the exclusive powers to make laws with respect to any of the matters enumerated in the union list. Okay, so whenever it is about making the laws and the legislature regarding the unit list matter, then the powers are exclusive and only vested with the parliament. This list has at present 98 subjects. Originally, there were 97 subjects like the defense, banking, foreign affairs, currency, atomic energy, insurance, communication, interstate trade, and the commerce, sciences, audit, and so on. Okay, so remember there are total 98 subject in the union list. Okay, originally 97, one was added later, and these subjects are like the matter of defense. Okay, matter of banking, matter of foreign affairs, matter of currency, matter of atomic energy, insurance, the communication part, the interstate trade, the commerce, the sciences, the audit, and so on. Thereafter, the state legislature has, in normal circumstances, when everything is okay, having the exclusive powers to make laws with respect to any of the matters which are enumerated and provided in the state list. And the list has at present the 59 subjects. Originally, there were 66. Thereafter, the 7 subjects were deleted or removed. And these subjects are like public order, policing, public health and the sanitation part, state agriculture, state prisons, state local government, fisheries, market, theaters, gambling, and so on. All right. So all these matters are presented in the state legislature, and basically the state legislature in the normal circumstances. What does it mean? It means that when there is a no article implementation like Article 356 and Article 365. Until or unless Article 356 and the 365 have not been imposed in the state, then the state could make the laws on it. So what does it mean by the Article 356 and Article 365? What does it mean? So if we try to decode it, Article 356 basically stands for the state emergency. Okay. And Article 365 stands for the presidential rule. So what does it mean? Let's decode it. First is the state emergency. What does it mean? It means when the state government fails to operate as per the constitution and state law and order is out of control, then the state emergency will be imposed by the president. And basically, all the powers will be transferred to the central government regarding the provisions of the state list. Whereas, when we talk about the presidential rule, then remember, when the state government fails to operate with the command or directions given by the center. So, if the state government fails to operate with the command or the directions which have been given by the center, okay, then the president could impose the presidential rule, and they both are significance or signifies the state emergency. Okay, in both the cases, all the powers of the state government regarding the state list have been restored and transferred to the central government or at the central level. All right. So that's why it is written down that as long as there is the normal circumstances in the state, there is no situation of Article 356 and the Article 365 imposed in the state, then basically all the things of the state list will grants the exclusive powers to the state government to make the legislations and the rules. But if these two articles have been imposed in the state, then basically that power will be transferred to the central level. All right. Thereafter, third is the part of concurrent list. Both the parliament and the state legislature can make laws with respect to any of the matters which are enumerated in the concurrent list. Basically, we could say that both the parliament, which is the central level, and the state legislature, which stands for the state level, both them having the power to make the laws and the legislature with the matters presented in the concurrent list. So this list has at present 52 subjects. Originally 47 were there, but later the 5 new subjects were added. Okay, and like the criminal court or criminal law, civil procedure, marriage and the divorce, population control, family planning, these are the subjects of the concurrent list. Electricity, labor welfare, economic and the social planning, drugs, newspapers, books and printing press, and others. All right. And there is another amendment, which is the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976, which is oftenly known as the mini constitution. Why we call it as a mini constitution? Because that particular act added so many things in the constitution of India. Okay. And this transferred 5 subjects to the concurrent list, which were originally mentioned as the state list. All right. And these are the matters of the education, forest, weights and measures, and the protection of wild animals and birds. All right. So remember that if we look all this picture, then what we will find in union list, state list, and the concurrent list. Over the period of time, the union list had got one subject. The state list has lost seven subject, and the concurrent list has got five subject. All right. So keep this thing in your mind. All right. And the fifth one is the administration of justice, constitution, and organization of all courts except the Supreme and the High Courts, because their code of conduct could not be discussed in the matters of legislatures. All right. Thereafter, the parliament has power to make laws with respect to any matter of any part of the territory of India which is not included in the state, even though the matter is one which is enumerated in the state list. This provision has reference to the union territories or acquired territories, if any. All right. Thereafter, the 101 Amendment Act of 2016 has made a special provision with respect to the goods and the service tax, which is famously known as the GST. Accordingly, the parliament and the state legislatures have power to make laws with respect to the goods and services tax imposed by the union or by the state. Further, the parliament has exclusive power to make laws with respect to the goods and service tax where the supply of goods or service or both take place in the course of interstate trade or the commerce. So basically, if we talk about the term GST, which stands for the goods and service tax. Okay, if we talk about the GST, then we know that it was formulated after merging all the indirect taxes which were prevailing in India. All right, and basically there are powers provided for the state government and the central government. And what are these powers? So basically, the state government having the power of intrastate trade, all right, and the central government having the power of interstate trade. Okay, so what is the intrastate trade? Basically, if both the buyer and the seller are within the same state, okay, so it means the point of supply and the point of delivery is in the same state, so the state government having the power to make the laws regarding the collection. But if the situation is that both the buyer and the seller are in different state, it means that the point of supply and the point of delivery are different. Okay, so in such a case the matter is not falls under the any particular state government, and basically the matter now is falls under the power of the parliament or at the central government, basically that now the central government having the power to make the rules and the regulations regarding the collection. All right, so that's how the work together as a GST, and this has been provided by the 101st Amendment Act of 2016. Okay, So students, basically in this lecture we have finished till here. In the next lecture we will continue from here. Till then, just revise all the facts and figures which we have discussed in this lecture and be ready for the another lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.